Welcome to the Mixed Media Tapes. I'm your host, Philip J. Mellon. The Mixed Media Tapes is a short artist talk series based on word and phrase prompts. I have invited visual artists to select prompts from a list and to share their thoughts and stories based on those prompts. In this recording, Sabine Tress shares her experiences with titling her work and how her thoughts have evolved over time about the subject. Listen in.
Sabine Tress. My studio is in Cologne, and that's in Germany. Okay, I picked titles as a topic because I was remembering that all those years I thought it wasn't very important titles, and it was always like a bit of a hassle to name abstract paintings I've made and give them titles and names. And I only ever done it during all those years because it was easier to handle, talking to galleries or talking to collectors or talking to friends. It was just easier as a from an organized. How do you say that? To organize it. To
to organize.
Yeah,
makes
to
sense.
organize.
Like say.
Yeah, to refer to them. But it was like a necessity. It was like a pain in the ass. Here you go. And in the last couple of years, I think my paintings changed a bit, and it's become more personal. Or I'm trying to. I really wanted to be more personal, even though it's still abstract, and to the viewer it might not be a lot more personal, but to me it is. And out of a sudden I realized that I'm starting to like choosing names for my paintings, because somehow it gives them like an identity, and there's also a narrative attached to them sometimes, not always. But it often happens to paintings that I really like, that I like more than others. Whereas before it was like a necessity, and I sort of had to do it. Now I almost enjoy titles, and but when it comes to choosing titles, I still use a lot of song titles, because I don't listen to that much of. I don't listen to a lot of music anymore in the studio because the dog really hates it. But but I still listen to a lot of music nevertheless, and so I still use a lot of song titles, and I also choose titles from films I watch or series. But I quite like it because I choose it more in a more personal way, in a more it feels like I really want to choose and give them names and give them it's become a different sort of process. And the funny thing is, some paintings really become those titles. And that's been a change as well. Like, for example, I was thinking this painting I called Cocaine Diana, because it's a Kid Loco song. And in my head, and whenever I look at that painting, it's become Cocaine Diana. And I really like that. So choosing titles and titles as such has become a more personal process. Even though I still have a problem, and I still worry that it might be pretentious, and it still isn't very easy, and it still is it's still weird giving abstract paintings titles, I think.
I think personally, I kind of agree with you, and I feel like you were saying that the closer you feel to the work, the not so much easier, but maybe there's a better word for it, but the easier it can be to title the painting. But if you're charting new territory, so to speak,
That's true.
How can you give them names? I don't know. I find that with myself, like just in the most recent paintings that I've done, it's been hard to title them.
But yours always, because you're a painter as well as a poet. I always feel like your titles, they're like, they justify, or not justified. It's a wrong word, but it's not just you don't just choose them out of the blue. It feels like your titles. I don't know how. Do you know what I mean? I really have to look. I really have to go and choose song titles. Whereas you being a poet, it comes naturally to you. That's what I mean. And I really feel that your titles aren't pretentious, and also because you writing poems, it's more obvious. It's more natural for you.
Yeah. Well, that I'll take that as a compliment. That's really cool. I guess they're unpretentious because well, that's really cool to hear too. And I don't know, it's really difficult, that whole process. A lot of times, like while I'm painting on a specific painting or, a group of them, I don't always do it, but I try to write down what comes to mind.
Okay.
Even if, if it's a phrase or a word, I don't know where they come from. It's just something about like being in that state of painting and looking at this image for so long and so intently that just the response, these words pop into my head, so I jot them down, and sometimes they become titles, and sometimes they don't. But who knows? Maybe also at times they become they jump into poems. So there's two places I can put those phrases. So that's kind of cool and convenient for that.
I understand, but that's what I mean. It's more natural because you write all the time, and it's just parallel. You writing poems and painting seems like it's always happening almost simultaneously.
Yeah. It's wow. I feel fortunate, to be able to have that, like those two veins, avenues to put, my thought and my energy, like the creative energy, like can go with words or it can go with paint, like, and that's very vague, but because it could be color and everything else, but and titling poems I almost never do. That's really hard, and I think a lot of poets they'll choose the first line of the poem or the last line, and it's kind of a way to do it, but I don't know, it's so hard. I mean, because it like you're giving words to words, and like if you title something, it's almost like too much to me. More often than it's too much to title a painting, if that makes sense. Like I feel like because to give words to words, it's almost redundant or just you just did it, Whereas with a painting doesn't necessarily have words, so you're giving words to the painting, and I think there's a greater relationship or a better relationship, or just a little bit more sensible in some way between words to paintings versus words to words.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I understand.
Yeah, so maybe like one approach to titling paintings, you should be a little bit more casual, or just like speaking to myself, because I get so serious about it. And it's almost like sometimes the process of the painting stops, and then I have to give it a title, and that's very hard. But like I said, when phrases and words come to me while I'm painting, it's in the same vein, like the same breath, the same mode, and it seems a little bit more natural. Whereas like titling after a painting is finished, that seems very hard to me.
I see.
And, because that's when you're thinking differently. For me, like I'm thinking differently when I finish a painting than when I'm actually working on it.
I never thought about that, but it's true. It's obvious. It's logical, but it's true. I always give them titles when the painting's finished, and it's true. Then you're not in the painting anymore. You're out of it. I think titles are still quite important to viewers, not to us maybe, or to some degree, but I think to the collector or buyer or viewer, titles are quite important, and I think they really influence their feelings or their emotions or the way they think about the painting. I think that's really, in a way, it's quite awful that happens, but I think it does happen. If I gave a painting the title like Death, or or something really horrible, negative, I think it'd be harder to sell the painting. I'm really sure,
That makes sense.
But that's quite, it's awful, but it doesn't really matter. If I wanted to call the painting Death, I'd call it Death, but then I don't care about titles that much. But I think it really influences the viewer, don't you think?
Yeah, I think that. I called it an introduction, but it may not be an introduction. Maybe it's sort of an afterthought, like for the viewer. But it's like reading an artist statement. I mean, how many artists viewers actually look at the title? I mean, maybe they don't. And maybe the artist statement. So the only thing that influences the painting is the image of the painting. But I think what you were saying earlier is this idea to separate and categorize or just organize. I think you were saying is that one of the main functions of titling paintings, maybe for some, just so you can say, the one with the blue up in the left-hand corner, or you can call it, a song title that you happen to pick out.
Yeah.
Blue Moon, or versus, describing it, because, how far would describing it take us if paintings didn't have titles? And then there's the painters that put numbers on their paintings, like they classify or categorize or title their paintings with a number system. To be pro number for a second, like if it's actually safer in some way, and not in a to hide or anything, but just safer to give a painting a number just so it doesn't influence the viewer.
Yes, you're right.
So there's a method to that madness, so to speak.
Yes. You're right. It'd be actually more neutral. It'd be more honest. It is true. It is true because, we both think that, and it is true. I think it's a fact that you influence viewers, when they see the title. So if they just saw Untitled or Number 8, it's true. It'd be different. But maybe it's nice that maybe it's nice, that influence. Maybe it's a nice thing. Maybe I always think of it as influence as being manipulative. How to say that?
Manipulative.
Yeah, and that's a bad thing. But maybe it can also be a nice thing. This is Sabine Tress from Cologne, and you're listening to Mixed Media Tapes.